weighted pull-ups, weighted chin-ups, and weighted dips. These are the exercises majority people do within their weighted calisthenics journey. But before you do that, here are 5 things you need to do before you start weighted calisthenics. So weighted calisthenics is the epitome of strength, the most badass way of training your own body weight plus additional weight. Like if bodyweight pull-ups and dips were already hard, there's guys out here literally dipping and pulling 100% of their body weight or more. That's some elite strength right there. And not to brag, but I'm right up there with them, like no cap. So in this video, I'm gonna be showing you exactly what you need to know before starting weighted calisthenics. And if you already started and ran into some plateaus, well, you better take some notes, man. Number 1, you need to get a very strong base with the pull-ups, chin-ups, and dips. This means you wanna be shooting for about 8 to 10 reps on the pull-ups or chin-ups. And then following with that, going to be 10 to 15 reps on the dips, and this is taking into account you doing it on average per set. If you can't do this, then don't even think about jumping into weighted calisthenics. In most cases, if you do decide to jump the gun, you'll be putting yourself at a disadvantage with how fast you can progress in terms of increasing the load on your exercises. But I will say there are specific scenarios in terms of when you can start adding load onto your pull-ups or dips if you still haven't hit those specific numbers that I stated earlier. Let's say if you can only do like 5 reps on the pull-ups and you decide to add about anywhere between 2.5 to like 5 pounds on those pull-ups, then this is actually going to be beneficial for you to help learn and improve your bodyweight pull-up strength. But what it's not going to do is necessarily teach you how to improve your weighted calisthenics, specifically the weighted pull-up strength, right? There's 2 different purposes and reasoning behind why we're adding the weight. One is to improve your bodyweight pull-up reps, and then the other, which is what I'm doing and what I'm trying to teach y'all to do, is to improve your overall weighted pull-ups or chin-ups or dip numbers and strength. Besides, I'm sure not me or you want to start doing weighted calisthenics with those kind of loads using like 2.5 or just 5 pounds. All right, I'm not here to shame nobody who did do that, but I'd rather you milk your bodyweight training before you start adding weight, because honestly, to some degree, it just makes more sense to get more out of less loads with using just your body weight. Number 2, know how to properly set up the weight belt. Man, I'm not gonna cap. In my early days of doing weighted calisthenics, I was a victim of this and didn't know how to properly set up the weight belt, whether that's for my chin-ups, my pull-ups, or dips. But in hindsight though, it didn't really impact me until I started adding like a lot of plates onto the belt. It wasn't really an issue when I was just working with like 1 or 2 plates at most. Because with what I noticed was, with the traditional style of setting up the belt by using that standard length chain and looping it on the other end of the belt buckle, then through the actual plate hole and connecting it to the buckle, what this does is brings up the weight super close to your pelvis area. And to be honest, if you're doing like more than 3 plates on the actual belt, that shit can get mad uncomfortable. Sometimes even clip your nuts, like no cap, man. Another thing too is whenever you're doing your weighted dips or weighted pull-ups and you have the weight a lot higher up, closer to your pelvis region, it's not going to be giving you the stability that you would need to execute this exercise correctly. Now think about it from a bodyweight perspective. You're going to get the most activation and use of this exercise if you have your glutes engaged, your legs together, and also pointing your toes. But whenever you're doing a standard way of adding plates to your weight belt, you're going to notice that you're not going to be able to engage your glutes and keep your legs in unison the same way as you would for your bodyweight exercises. So that right there is going to be a discrepancy in terms of technique and form between the two, because we all know when dealing with a movement in a fixed hand position with a whole lot of loads, this can cause discrepancies in your exercise execution and overall ruin your performance within the set. So here's what you should do instead. First and foremost, I recommend getting a longer chain for your weight belt. For the chain, I believe if you live in the United States, you can go to Home Depot. If you live in the UK, there's something called DQ. And I want you to go to the rope and chain section and basically pick out a chain long enough, say about 3 to 4 feet long, and that's going to be enough length for you to actually set it up properly, specifically the way that weighted calisthenic athletes do within competition. If you notice, they be having the plates hanging a lot lower than their pelvis region and kind of besides their feet, which is going to prove on to my point of having better exercise execution because of the setup. So A is going to be eliminating that crotch issue that we mentioned earlier. And then B, you're just going to perform the movement better. And here's why. Because the weight is beside our feet, we're going to be able to control the weight better. And if you don't know, the way you perform your bodyweight pull-ups or dips, like I mentioned earlier, you got to keep your legs and feet together to stabilize your entire lower body, which is ideal for moving your own body through space for maximal performance. Now, we want to do the same thing with additional load, and if you're doing more than 2 additional plates, you're going to find that it's harder to keep those legs and feet together to properly engage your glutes, quads to execute this exercise. Let alone if you're doing numbers like me with like 4 added plates or more. That's really going to clip your nuts. But that being said, number 3 is going to be understanding RPE, the rate of perceived exertion, aka how much effort you're putting into an exercise on a particular set. Now, this scaling system is done between 1 to 10. 1 meaning the particular set was very easy, 10 meaning the particular set was extremely difficult. This right here is honestly a game changer to improving your overall weighted calisthenics journey. This is a common thing most powerlifters utilize to keep record of how intensely they're training over the course of their training sessions. So let me break it down. By learning how to scale the amount of effort you're doing on a particular set, this is going to help minimize injury by training perhaps with too high of an intensity, whether that's on a set after set basis or session to session basis, which if not managed correctly can easily lead to an overuse of intensity ranges to injure your tendons, muscle, or joints. Or it can improve your overall performance. Let's say you never really truly train within proximity to failure, say RPE 8, 9, or 10. Then that means you're leaving a lot of gains left on the table and never sending the necessary stimulus to break down your muscle fibers and let the muscle development and strength adaptations occur. You can be practically training between the RPE ranges of like 5, 6, or 7 for months on end and complain about why you're not seeing any progress. Well, it's simply because you're just not training that hard. So that's the whole reason why we got to understand what RPEs mean and the principle behind it. So Cobra, what if I already know what RPEs mean? How does that actually help me manage my intensity and also recovery? Do I always train at high RPEs? How do we implement RPE into our training? Now, these might be questions you might be thinking to yourself right now. If not, it definitely was what I was thinking back in my days. So I got you. This then leads on to the 4th thing you should know about before starting weighted calisthenics: strength periodization. This is going to be the process of planning and managing your training involving a progressive cycle of increasing the amount of effort you exert over a period of time. Variables that you manage are intensity, volume, and recovery. Now, if you don't know what these variables mean and signify, then I highly recommend you watch my video where I go in detail about what intensity, volume, and recovery actually means within the context of working out. But to quickly go over it, intensity just basically means the amount of effort you're exerting on a set, aka RPE. Volume is going to be the total amount of working sets and reps that you do per week. And then recovery as well. Recovery. You just got to recover your body before you start your next session, right? And again, that's all explained in this video right here. 4 to 6 exercises is all you need per workout. Now, to make consistent strength and muscle gains, you got to do something called progressive overload. I'm sure you know what that means, right? The process of just making the exercise difficult over a period of time, right? And you can make the exercise more difficult by increasing the intensity or adding more sets and reps. Basically, just putting yourself in a position where the exercise is getting difficult over time. And this is all for you to what? Stay within the optimal range to build muscle and increase your strength adaptations. The same thing applies here to periodizing your training. Think of your training within a cycle of, say, anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks, right? You have warm-up weeks, working weeks, and then deload or complete rest weeks. The first 1 to 3 weeks are there to help you get into the groove of things by decreasing the intensity significantly. The next 3 to 4 weeks after that will be considered your working weeks. These are the weeks that will build muscle and increase your strength. Now, you may have heard of a PR week. Well, that's pretty much 1 or 2 weeks within that group of working weeks. Then after your working weeks, it's called your deload week. This is where you reduce intensity again to give your body the chance to recover after those PRs or attempted PRs if you didn't necessarily hit the PR. So think about this the same way within your actual workout, right? In that session, you have a warm-up set, working set, and then a drop set. We're kind of applying the same method and principle, but just on a bigger spectrum. think bigger picture, right? Which is what I actually help coach people in doing. So if you're having trouble understanding the main principles behind strength periodization and how to apply it to your own training, then you should definitely book a call with me, because I'm actually taking on free consultation calls where I talk to you for 15 minutes and connect with like-minded people, where I answer any questions that you might have about creating custom workout programs and taking on new potential clients for one-on-one coaching. Because I'm not gonna lie, even though my videos are full of game, there's just no way it can be applied to everyone. So if you want to chat, feel free to click the link in the description or check the pinned comments. And last but not least, number 5 is having a consistent mobility routine. Your body's ability to move freely through the ranges of motion necessary to complete an exercise is always going to be the priority. Without that, aka mobility, you're going to have trouble finding the ability to actually do and complete the basic calisthenic movements. That said, without proper mobility, movements can either be restricted or you're going to find yourself risking injury. Let alone if you're doing the basic pull-ups and dips, but with added load. That's just going to further increase the intensity and further increase your risk of injury if you're not doing the proper mobility routines. So in a practical sense, I like to dedicate anywhere between 10 to like 12 minutes before every workout session to properly prep up my wrist, my elbows, and my shoulders, even my scapular too. This might sound very redundant, but don't skip your mobility routines, because this is going to be the marathon, right? This is going to help actually sustain your ability to make continuous progress without hitting plateaus, without injuring yourself, and so on. So take note, man. In addition to that, even just doing like the bodyweight pull-ups or dips can be very beneficial. What I like to particularly do within my warm-up sets leading onto the working sets of my weighted calisthenic exercises is going to be doing just slow and controlled pull-ups or dips, and kind of pausing at the bottom of the dip to just further engage that stimulus that I need for my chest, for my shoulders, and my triceps. So this is all for the purpose of like helping lubricate my joints, warming up those muscles that I'm going to be activating and priming for the actual working sets. So this part doesn't need to be overcomplicated. As long as you're just getting yourself primed for your working sets, you should be fine. But hey, what do I know? If you like to see more content like this, be sure to follow me, man. I'm Tough Fitness Scout here. No cap.
Cobra Trains, he's up next. Make sure y'all subscribe to him. He's number one out here.
He's the toughest fitness guy out here.